All right, guys, today we're going to be smoking some beef ribs on the Char Griller Acorn using the Temp Spike Twin from ThermoPro. Stick around for the rest of the video. I'm going to show you how I do it. All right, let's dive right in. First thing we're going to do is we're going to get these opened up. Now, we picked these beef ribs up from Costco. We kind of like their meat. They usually have pretty good products, and this is a pretty good sized slab of ribs. We're going to get it out of the package here and go over it and just see how much of the fat and stuff that we need to actually trim off. Now, you'll see here it looks like it got a couple of cuts in it. No big deal. We're not so much worried about it. There's a big flab here, so we're going to cut that flap off. And we'll do a little bit of trimming around the edges and everything just to get all the excess fat trimmed off. We don't want to take it all off because that's where a lot of our flavor is going to come from. But we're just going to get it trimmed down to about 1/4 of an inch thick. All right, so we've got this trimmed down. Now I'm going to stick my knife right underneath the edge of this here, and I'm going to show you this membrane that's on the back. On beef ribs, you don't want to pull this off. On pork ribs, you normally pull it off, but on beef ribs, we're going to leave it on there simply because that's what's going to hold the ribs together while we're cooking them. And it renders out somewhat. It can be a little bit chewy, but for the most part, it just keeps the rack together and makes the cook a little bit easier, especially if you need to rotate them or pick them up and move them. All right, now that we've got our fat off, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to coat this down with mustard. I prefer to just use yellow mustard and coat my beef down. That helps my seasoning really adhere to it, gives it kind of a bonding layer. It doesn't do much to change the flavor. It just helps me get that seasoning to stick on there and gives it a good bark. So what we're going to do is we're going to rub it down with mustard. We're going to do both sides and make sure we get all the edges. All right, I use the butt rub. We picked this up from Costco as well. It's pretty good. A little heavy on the salt sometimes, so you just have to kind of adjust to your tastes. We actually kind of like it, so I'm going to go ahead and get a good coating on here. And like I said, that mustard is what's going to help that just adhere to those ribs and stay on there during the cook process. While we're cooking this, there's a lot of moisture going to come out of it, and we don't want it to wash our seasoning off, so we use that mustard, like I said, as a base layer just to hold the seasonings on. Now I'm going to get this coated down. We're going to coat all of it, even the sides and the edges. We're going to make sure we get all that done. And then from there, we'll be ready to get our smoker set up, and we're going to let these set out at room temperature while we're getting everything set up on the smoker. Now, I've got my smoker set up, and I put my grate in, and you'll notice my grate is sideways. I do that because I use a rack. Now, I'm just using regular apple juice here in a pan. I've got my smoke stone already put in. I'm just going to put this apple juice in there. It seems to add a little bit of apple flavor to it. And it also helps as far as keeping the meat moist. Now, once we get this set up, I'm just going to make sure that everything's cleaned off on the grill. I don't want any bits and pieces and stuff burning on there, which it shouldn't no hotter than we're going to get it. We're going to adjust the top and get our lid locked down on our acorn. This is something that's key on the Char Griller Acorn, is to make sure you lock that down. You don't want any air coming in that's uncontrolled by either one of these vents. And then once we get that set, we're going to let it come up to temperature and get adjusted in. And once it's at temperature, which we want about 275, it's at that point we'll be able to pop the lid and drop our ribs in on the rack. So you can see there we got a good smoke ring coming out. Everything's set up and good. So we're going to go ahead and open up. Like I said, I've got mine on a roasting rack. I like that because it allows the heat and the smoke to circulate around the ribs. I don't really have to flip them a lot, and I can set it down in there. It's a little bit of a tight fit, so I just check and adjust and make sure that it's set just right when I drop it in. Now, we're going to lock this lid down, and we're going to walk away, and we're going to leave this thing. We're just going to watch the temperature, make sure it stays right at our 275. Again, lock that lid down. You don't want any extra air coming in. We dropped to about 250, but it's going to climb back up now that the lid's closed. So here is the Temp Spike Twin Pro, or the Temp Spike Twin that comes from ThermoPro. I actually like this setup. They're rechargeable. You get 2 meat probes. In addition to the fact that it does meat temperature, it also gives you ambient temperature, so you don't have to run back and forth to the grill every little bit to see the temperature. It's going to show you your internal meat temperature on the top here, and then down below it's going to show you your grill temperature or ambient temperature. And you can set that in the app. There's several settings in there and stuff that makes it a little bit easier. Now we're just going to let some of the smoke out here, and we're going to come in and we're going to mist this down. Basically all I'm using is just a little bit of apple juice and water mixed together, and we're going to spritz this down. We don't want it to dry out completely. You can see our temp spike sitting right there in the front, that white thing sticking out. We've got it inserted in about the center of the ribs, so that's going to help us keep an eye on our temperature. Now we're back again. You can see it's starting to develop that bark onto it, and we're going to start probing it with the temp probe. Now the temp probe should slide right into this nice and easy, and we should be right around 200 to 210 degrees. That's usually where I cook my beef ribs to. Everybody has their own preference. Obviously where it's thinner, it's going to be a little bit hotter, but we're looking for that overall tenderness. That's the biggest telltale. If that probe just falls in, like pushing it into room temperature butter, then that's where you want it. Now we've got the ribs out here. We're letting them rest. And that is going to be another key thing. These are beef ribs. It's like cooking a steak. You're going to want to let them rest. Now they've got a good bark on them. You can see there that the bones are kind of loosening up some. We're going to wrap these in aluminum foil, stick them in the oven, and we're going to let them rest for about 45 minutes. Now, with wrapping them in the aluminum foil and putting them in the oven, that's going to keep them above 140 degrees and food safe temperature. Now, we're going to pull our probe out. I'm going to go ahead and slice into this thing and let you get a view of it. The knife is going to be a little bit tough going in at first to get through that bark, but once you get through, it just slides through that meat like butter. We're going to raise it up here. There's the juices coming out of it. That, I think, is key where we did some of the spritzing, just to keep the outside a little bit moist. That helped keep the inside of the ribs from drying out. And then you can see here we've got that nice smoke ring, good bark on the outside. And honestly, I'm ready to jump off this video and go ahead and sit down and start chowing down on these. But guys, listen, if you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up, drop comments or questions down below. As always, stick with us. We're going to be coming to you with more videos. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and tick that bell so you get notified.